Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 293, being recorded on March 26th, 2014. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Alan Malventano.
And I'm Maury Titleman.
And you're not playing with the new sliding stuff, or you can.
Yeah, this is a Josh Techless episode. So if he's the only reason you tune in, that's kind of actually depressing to me. But if it is, then you should probably disconnect now. However, we have a whole lot of really interesting news. A lot of interesting stuff has happened this week, so we've got a lot to get to. So let's jump right to it. First off, we encourage everybody to sign up for our live mailing list. We record this live on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And if you go to pcper.com/subscribe, you can sign up for a little list. All we do is we take your name, we take your email address. We email you 20, 30 minutes before we're going to do a live show. It could be a live recording of the podcast like this. It could be when we did a live blog of the DX12 announcement that we'll talk about this week. It could be that Josh desperately wants to race somebody in Dirt 2, and for some reason we decided to stream that as well. So if you want to sign up there, pcper.com/subscribe. We only use it for that, and we've that list has actually grown up to be pretty healthy size. So check it out if you can. So let's talk about a lot of stuff that happened this week. The first thing we're going to actually breach is Alan's article, kind of a look at Intel's storage group, their SSD validation testing. This is something that you did when you went out to Folsom a couple of weeks ago now, I guess. What'd you find there?
Found some pretty cool, interesting stuff, actually. One big chunk of which is what we wrote up in this article. Basically, we walk through their labs where they actually take all the drives and bake them and sort of freeze them and put them through all sorts of temperature cycling and just pretty much try to do everything you could to test them in an accelerated manner and try to cause them to fail, basically. Like we're talking, worst case, everything, right? Right to the drive with temperature at the high end of the spec, and then try to read from it with temperature at the low end of the spec, vice versa. They have a bunch of test gear on site. I actually had just like rows and rows of cubes. The guys just with test gear looking at failed, any kinds of failures that did happen or anything that looked weird when the units were being tested. And then as far as like validation testing goes, they had a room just full of racks of gear, but each rack was like a different set of hardware. In other words, like a VMware ESX server kind of stuff, and like various types of SAN gear and various types of Oracle gear and various types of, just basically everything. Like every possible combination of everything you could possibly put an SSD through. These guys are pretty much doing it all at the same time. And what Ken's showing on the stream there is these big cabinets where they had a bunch of drives plugged in, all with various workloads being applied to them, and then the cabinets themselves were temperature controlled. Yeah. So
I mean, what's the benefit of this to somebody who's buying SSDs, though, right? So it's impressive to see they're doing all this testing, but at the end of the day, what's it actually mean for us?
This is the sum total of what you have to do to make a product that you can claim X amount of reliability on, right? Like Intel wants to find whatever kind of problem that could crop up. They want to find it here. They don't want to find it, after they've sold 1 million of these SSDs and then, oh, whoops, turns out there was this bug and it caused like 5% of the drives to fail, right? They want 5% of the drives to fail here before they get shipped. And this is the kind of, testing you have to do for something like that. You can't just test like 5 or 10 drives and just assume that, okay, well, since these 10 worked, then we're good, right? And so they ramp it up like way high. And they test, because they're testing every variation of every model of every line that they're shipping, like multiple units of those. And they even, as part of the brief, they didn't show us this part in person, but as part of the brief they were showing for their enterprise products, when they go to design the actual firmware that's on the controller, there's a degree of, believe it or not, cosmic rays affect your computer. Like if you get, it's entirely possible that if you got one of the blue screens you got in your lifetime may very well have happened from just a neutron just floating right through your CPU and flipping a bit and causing things to just go south, right? The same kind of thing applies here. So like the flash memory itself can pretty much sustain something like that. It doesn't really affect it because there's ECC, error correction kind of mechanisms in place. And then these solid state drives use ECC DRAM, right? So that's kind of protected. That has error correction capability to it. But the controller itself is like the traffic cop for where all the data is going in the whole SSD, and it has a track like what addresses data is going to and whatnot. So if you flip one of those bits, then things could really go south, right? So they worked on firmware to try to be as robust as possible around like, what happens if this bit gets flipped at this point in time? What's it going to do? And then they add extra checks to make sure that it goes back and make sure, okay, did I write that data to the right place? Because there's no way I could have known if the address just changed like by 1 bit between when I thought I was writing it and when I already wrote it, right? So they write all the stuff in the firmware, and then they take the actual controller and they bring it to, what was it, Los Alamos? And they basically just hit it with a saturated neutron beam while it's running and try to make it break. And then when it does, fail, they figure out, okay, what part of the code wasn't being checked, or that sort of thing. So this is the kind of thing that does not, it's not like your computer is constantly just like bits are flipping at random. But for a piece of enterprise gear where you want to make sure that, like, absolutely sure that everything is working properly, then that's the kind of thing you have to do. And then they were also able to engineer these kinds of firmwares to where if something did go south enough to where it's not sure if it did the right thing, it actually just bricks itself. It just like resets itself or just stops responding because it's a piece of enterprise gear. It's kind of assumed that there's redundancy in the system where, if you have a rack full of any kind of storage devices and they're redundant, you don't want one to just start acting flaky. You want it to just stop, right? So that you know that one is the failure, and then you could just swap it out with a known good one and then just go on with your day, right? So
could we run time there and bring this casting machine out and see if that's what's doing it?
Yeah, we should definitely bring the video machine.
It's just very consistent electrons screwing everything up. Only when you hit this one button, though.
That's what the problem is. Ken has a pile of bananas, and he keeps eating them.
They're just radiating right over that machine.
He's just radiating the freaking CPUs, man. That's what it is.
It explains so much. So it's a very kind of behind the scenes topic to discuss, right? I mean, does this make you, if as a consumer, want to purchase those SSDs that have gone through that than those that haven't? And to be fair, like, we don't know for sure that Samsung isn't doing this, that Micron isn't doing this with the Crucial drives, right? This is Intel is trying to brag and show off and say, look at what we're doing. This is why we are confident in the reliability of our drives. Should that make consumers go towards that brand, right? Knowing that they have this kind of testing process taking place?
Well, I would say that it definitely backs up the fact that we know that Intel SSDs are among the most reliable, right?
Okay.
I mean, they have to get there somehow, right? So to be able to put an actual visual with how do you get there, right? How do you make a product that's this reliable?
Right.
And you're right. It doesn't mean that Samsung isn't doing the same exact thing. As a matter of fact, I would venture a guess that they're doing something very similar because Samsung SSDs also have very good, known good reliability. I mean, even if you look at Newegg on just the feedback and stuff, it's very similar to Intel SSDs, right? But it also kind of lets you guess at some of the other companies, like any other SSD company that you might have seen get bad feedback over the years. They probably don't have something to this scale, right? Because if you did, then you would be catching this stuff as opposed to the consumers catching it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. It's pretty interesting stuff. I think I'm glad that they went through that process to take you guys out there and really show that off. I think it's not only just for Intel, but I think for SSDs as a technology to improve the perception of reliability is a big plus. Is a step that we should be making.
Yep.
Let's see what else. There was something else that happened this past week. It's kind of minor. Microsoft announced DirectX 12 officially. I guess if anybody cares about that. Apparently, a lot of people do. This was the most popular live blog that I've ever run on the website for any event or day of ever. Right? We had thousands and thousands of people all watching this live blog at one time. Probably thanks a lot to the fact that Microsoft was not streaming it and wasn't allowing any live streams of it to actually go out. So at GDC last week, the kind of big reveal was that Microsoft officially unveiled DirectX 12. They talked about what it was and kind of somewhat of a high level, right? They didn't go into a whole bunch of detail. And what's interesting, let's see, what are the key points to DirectX 12? Let's talk about how Mantle-like is it. And it seems like it is very Mantle-like in its goals. The goals are to be more direct, as they call it. Get it, DirectX. It's a really bad play on words. More direct, closer level to the hardware, faster, more complex scenes. They want it to work across all Microsoft platforms. That means Windows Phone, and Xbox, and they want to improve their tool capability, which is obviously a big plus for them on the console side. They're looking for a lower level of abstraction, addressing the state and rendering overheads that DirectX 9, 10, and 11 still have, resource management improvements, new rendering features, although the new features, which is in previous DirectX releases, that's pretty much all we ever talked about was, hey, there's this new thing that you can do that allows you to do order-independent transparencies or, something like that, or direct compute, right? Those are new features that were added in. DirectX 12, what we talked about thus far, is more about improving efficiency of currently available hardware. And that's also something that I think is new, in that DirectX 12, for the efficiency improvements, will target current generation hardware. AMD is, I don't know if they've come out and officially said what generations of graphics card, at least GCN architecture and above. Well, we're still at GCN, at least GCN architectures. And for NVIDIA, they're going back as far as Fermi, is that right? Fermi, Kepler, Maxwell, and all going forward will all support DirectX 12. So games that do eventually come out and support DirectX 12 efficiency improvements, those older graphics cards will be able to take advantage of it. But if the DirectX 12 comes out with new features, older graphics cards will likely not be able to support those. You'll still have to wait for a new generation of GPU to take advantage of new features that require new hardware. They're looking at very similar goals, as I said, to what Mantle is. Lower level API, taking back control of a lot of the processing and management from the processor itself, from the main CPU, and also using that to enable less CPU utilization on the system, more control to the programmer, and thus kind of improving overhead in general. They didn't go into a whole lot of super specific things about it, at least not in the sessions that I attended. But they did demo it. They had Qualcomm on stage. They had Intel on stage. They had NVIDIA and AMD on stage, all talking about, yes, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And it was all one big happy family, at least for that kind of moment in time, at least for that picture that we saw as well. It's kind of interesting to think about what... There's a lot of, politics to think about in terms of, did Microsoft copy Mantle, right? There are some stories out there that will have you believe that Microsoft basically took all the work that AMD did on Mantle, renamed it DirectX 12, and said, now we're going to make it a standard. Is that the case? I don't really know. Microsoft doesn't say it is. Obviously, NVIDIA doesn't say it is. AMD won't say that in any kind of official state. In any kind of official statement, although there are allusions to that being the case. I think it's more along the lines of that the goals are very similar. How they get there is kind of, there's not a whole lot of different directions you can go, right? So the fact that it would be very similar seems to make sense. There's also conspiracy theories around Nvidia saying that we've been working with Microsoft for up to 4 years on DirectX 12 versus, statements from AMD executives as recently as a year, 18 months ago saying, as far as we know, there's no DirectX 12 that exists or will ever come out. And so those are very contradictory. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's coming, and I think it's coming fairly late compared to what we had expected, right? So they're saying games by holiday 2015. So we're looking at a year probably before we can get, like a final version of this, maybe in some kind of preview mode, and you're talking about some time after that for games. Before we get into kind of what NVIDIA's DX11 talk was specifically, what do you guys think about what Microsoft launched, how they launched it, what the response was from all the different parties involved? Jeremy, do you have any thoughts?
I honestly, I really see this as a big console move for Microsoft. I think they're a little bit desperate right now that the Xbone is not selling the way that they were hoping it would. The price slashes have sort of helped, but not to the extent that I would assume that they were hoping. So now they can say, well, just wait. We got our game out that we promised you a long time ago, so now you can wait, and we're going to totally optimize the performance. You won't even have to buy new hardware, probably. It'll be interesting to see how they try to incorporate it. Otherwise, it will be, the Xbox 1.589 or something like that. So it's going to be interesting to see that. And I think the only real meat that the conspiracy theorists have is the timing. And I'm guessing AMD had a good idea this was coming out at GDC. So why not jump the gun by a couple of months with Mantle, regardless of whether anything launched being able to support it. And at this point, they can now point to actual games that you can buy and say, look, it actually runs a bit better. Maybe not 70% like we kind of hinted, but it runs better. We're already on the market. You want to sit and wait for DirectX 12? Go right ahead.
Yeah. It's, I think, the viability, the long-term life viability of Mantle kind of comes into question now, right? AMD has a window of about 18 months where from today until the release of, say, the first games using DirectX 12, where Mantle games can be released and AMD can look like the good guy for supporting this lower-level API by offering something extra to their customers that NVIDIA is not offering. Which leads us really into the next story, right? Where NVIDIA, they need to react to these things. They oftentimes feel like, or want to say that they shouldn't, that they're the dominant player, that why do they need to respond to the lesser player? But they obviously felt the need to respond with to how Mantle and DirectX 12 are stacking up. So they kind of prepared some information. They talked in general about, why is a lower level API necessary? What is an API? They compared CPU and GPU performance scaling in an interesting graph to show you how dramatically GPU gigaflops have increased compared to CPU gigaflops, for floating operations, right? How significantly memory bandwidth has increased on the GPU compared to on processors, right? And that kind of gives you an idea of why there is the potential for CPU bottlenecks in games that are traditionally, GPU bound. And, there's talk about, here are some instances with a 680, a Titan, an HC 7970, where if you actually overclock your processor and thus, you're kind of improving the CPU efficiency of the same platform, what kind of benefits can you get? And they range from 0% to 3% to 5%, up to 10% in a single case, ironically, with the AMD platform. And then they actually, so their response basically for the next 18 months is not, well, don't worry about efficiency. It's not that important until DX12. Their focus is on DirectX 11, right? And they are showing in this particular graph of this story continuous API efficiency improvements. So these are specific API calls, CV set, draw, set index buffer, set samplers that have improved over generation, over driver releases, right? So if you look at the green bars and from left to right, you'll see, they go from 125% to 200 to 400% faster compared to the R9 290X with the 14.2 drivers. And these aren't, these are showing you specific DirectX 11 calls. These are not game benchmarks. These are not summation of anything. These are just like raw functional improvements of the DirectX 11 API through their driver. And what that has enabled them to do is improve performance in some CPU limited situations in a similar way to what AMD Mantle does today. If you look at their next graph, they actually compare star swarm data, which is a benchmark from the Oxide Game guys, built basically essentially to show off Mantle, right? And if you look at that on the left-hand side, you see the 290X in D3D versus the 290X in Mantle. And you see a huge increase in performance, right? You're going from 30 to almost 60 frames per second. And that is a result of improved CPU efficiency. But if you look at the 780 Ti, right, you look at it in the R331, R334, and then an upcoming driver. I don't know. It might be R337. I can't remember exactly. And you can see that those green bars are improving over time through releases, and that really with the 334 they're able to almost match 290X Mantle performance, and then with the upcoming driver they'd be able to surpass it. Pretty interesting stuff. The Thief shows a similar story, although in a smaller scale, that they blew up thanks to jacking with the Axis levels there that marketing folks like to do. But the basically the argument from them is there's no reason to create a new API to improve performance and CPU efficiency. They realize that CPU efficiency needs to be addressed. That's why they're working with Microsoft on DX12. But they will say that there's no reason to splinter the market and create Mantle in addition to DirectX, in addition to OpenGL. Right? That's ironic. That's kind of somewhat funny coming from Nvidia when you talk about what they have done with G-Sync, what they've done with 3D Vision, what they've done with some other technologies. CUDA maybe comes to mind, although these analogies are not exactly parallel, because before CUDA, nothing really existed. Before 3D Vision, nothing really existed. Before G-Sync, nothing really existed. So they were kind of innovating there, whereas in this case, APIs were all over. It is more along the lines of comparing it to Glide, which, as we know, didn't turn out perfectly for 3D effects in the long run. NVIDIA also talked about OpenGL. They had a big talk there at GDC about extensions for OpenGL that really can push it into a highly CPU efficient API. And then they talked a little bit more about DirectX 12 overhead and what will actually improve. So the whole debate around Mantle started way back in September when AMD first announced it. And I still believe that AMD has done good with Mantle. Even if Mantle gets no more developers and just a handful more games released with it, it has done its job, right? The reason we are talking about CPU efficiency in gaming and on PCs again is because of Mantle. They brought it up. They brought it to the forefront. They showed here are concrete cases where you can see improvements. But I am curious how much of a benefit they will actually see financially or from a market share point of view with the money and time and effort that they spent on developing it, right? So will they see enough of improvement for them to have believed that it is worth it before DirectX 12 kind of comes in and standardizes everything? I don't know that yet. I do not know the answer to that yet. Anybody else? Thoughts?
Well, Ryan, do you think that this whole thing, Mantle and NVIDIA coming back with their driver improvements, is just a rehash of the same arguments that AMD and NVIDIA have had all along? I mean, you have some stagnation in the GPU space. I mean, just like in the even in the CPU space, that things don't move forward until the companies are forced to move them forward. AMD introduces Mantle, NVIDIA says, "Oh crap, we got to optimize our drivers better so that our latest cards don't fall behind the Mantle enhanced 290Xs." I mean, do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the case, right? So that's what I mean by AMD deserves some credit for doing good.
Yeah.
They, even if Microsoft was kind of working on DX12 or a new iteration of DirectX for a while, seeing the work that AMD did on Mantle and the positive feedback that they were getting from developers with Mantle probably pushed Microsoft down that road. It also probably helped push Nvidia to refocus on improving efficiency on their drivers. It also, it's a lot of it because of the whole Xbox versus PlayStation 4 issue, where Microsoft has less compute hardware in its platform, so it needs to find a way through software to improve performance and efficiency. So there's a combination of things here that are making this into play, and I actually think it's incredibly interesting, and it will be interesting to see how OpenGL comes into all this, because NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel, everybody is interested in OpenGL. I mean, it's PlayStation 4, it's Android, it's Linux, it's SteamOS, it's Mac. Like, OpenGL is not going anywhere. There are people that think that OpenGL is going to be gone now. It's definitely not going to be gone. If anything, I think it will have a renewed focus from the industry. So I think those types of battles are just beginning. Let's move on here. Talk about some other things that occurred, because believe it or not, there was some more stuff. Lee posted a review of the Cooler Master V. Where's that Cooler Master 5? I'm going to go with V series, 850 watt power supply. This is, as the name implies, 850 watts, a high efficiency unit, fully modular cable design, single 850 watt 12 volt output for 70 amps. So we get into our arc welding questions again. 6 PCIe by 6+2 connectors, Japanese caps, and a 5-year warranty. Cooler Master did a pretty good job with this unit, as it turns out. I won't go into the details here as we move along and try to speed things up, but it did get a gold award, with the only weakness being the dedicated PCIe cables would be nice. A second EPS connector for some, if you're connecting this to a dual socket board, or even one of those super high-end boards that Rory likes to play around with, that will take advantage.
Well, it does
of
have
that.
them, and they're just chained two on a wire. That was sort of the problem he was having. Is he would like to see them totally separate.
Oh,
And I can't play.
So let's actually, since we had Maury's attention here, he actually posted a review of the Asus ROG Poseidon GTX 780. This is a card that I spent a little bit of time with before I sent to him, because I don't have the water cooling set up to really dive into it. This is an interesting card. It is a we first saw it at CES. It's a GTX 780 with a unique cooler that combines standard air cooling in addition to water cooling as well. What did you think about this, Maury?
I thought I was very impressed with this card. I mean, I've been water cooling for a while. I've dabbled with other stuff, so I know a lot about water cooling, a lot about thermodynamics to go into how this stuff goes. And when I was very intrigued by the by the potential of the card, but when I first saw the design of it, I was kind of apprehensive, because Ken, if you could pull up, there's a that picture there. If you could expand that one there. Basically, the way that they designed the cooler is that they have a copper plate sitting over the memory and the CPU, or not the GPU die, and the water channel is actually just a U that goes through the copper plate. Usually, that's not an optimal method of water cooling. A GPU or a CPU for that matter. If you look at a lot of the aftermarket coolers, they actually have very defined channels with micro channels that actually go over the GPU die, and channels that go over the VRMs and all that. That really, for optimal cooling of that, because you want basically the water is in the liquid medium in close contact with those heat centers. With this kind of design, basically they're relying on the density of the copper plate to transfer the heat to the liquid medium. The problem there is that you have two different interface layers that can get in the way of that. You have the interface layer between the actual copper plate and the die or the memory, and then you have the interface layer between the U channel and the copper plate itself. Now, bearing all that, Asus was somehow able to solve the thermal mysteries here. This cooler performs as well or better than an aftermarket cooler, and I can say, because I have a 670 with an aftermarket cooler in my case, so I have an idea of where the temperature should lie. I mean, it's water cooling temperatures between video cards are doesn't vary too much under load. But basically, what we saw is we saw almost we saw a 20 to 30 degree decrease in temperatures when we applied water. Under load with firmware running, and even in games I saw this, the temperature of the card was getting up to 80 degrees C just with air. Under water cooling, it was getting somewhere between 50 and 60 degrees C, which still seems like kind of high, but that's actually reasonable, very reasonable for water cooling. That's pretty high end water cooling for a video card. So I mean, this cooler did an astounding job, and that's kind of why we gave it a gold award, because just based on the design of it, I didn't expect it to do as well as it did. So, and the other nice thing too is that the fans it uses on it uses two 90 millimeter fans. Normally, when a video card uses smaller fans, they tend to run faster and they run louder. Even at 80C and under heavy load, those fans did not break 40 decibels, which is silent. I mean, that's quieter than most of your case fans. So you would barely notice the graphics card running at full load, even on air. When you put water in there, the fans hardly spin up at all. So Asus it's a very impressive design, and they did a really good job in designing this for both either air or water operation.
Yeah.
So
it's I didn't get to testing the water cooling parts of it, but I was impressed with it just when we had it. I think it's $100 more than your standard card. Is that right? It's supposed to have an MSRP of $599.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. The MSRP and the prices at Amazon Newark are $599. The interesting thing about that is the base cards, base 780s run about 500, 450, 500. If you were to buy an aftermarket cooler and a backplate, you'd be spending at least $100 more, if not $150. That's the other thing here is with the backplate included, you get the additional protection that a backplate has for the rear components that are on a card as well. Yep. And with the backplate being aluminum, you get a secondary heat exhaustion path. I mean, it's a passive path, and it's not a lot, but for a video card that's running somewhere between 60 and 80 C under load, any heat dissipation path is good. So,
yeah,
that's.
I would say. What else is there on this? The overclocking did improve with the water cooling, though, right? We went from a GPU boost clock offset limit, basically, of stable overclocking of 110 megahertz up to, 155?
155, and that was with and we actually saw both a GPU speed and a memory speed increase.
Okay.
We went from 110 to 155 on the GPU, and we went from 700 to 850 on the memory, which are both impressive. Now, I mean, other reviews we might see, they might say, oh, well, we got higher GPU scores and all. When I was doing the overclocking, I was trying to get a balanced result between GPU and memory, and when you do that, your GPU speed is going to suffer, because you can push the GPU speed higher if you don't mess with the memory speed, but I was trying to get a balanced result here. So
Gotcha. Okay. It did get a gold award. It's a pretty good card, although I think you should really only buy this card if you are planning on taking advantage of the water cooling capabilities of it. Otherwise, the Asus DirectX 2 version of the GTX 780 is probably going to be a little bit less expensive. It's going to be a slightly better air cooler. And I think this gives you, I think the flexibility of moving between the two is really nice, but unless you either know you're going to use water cooling, or maybe you think you are going to use water cooling in the future, then I would probably lean towards one of the other cards. Even if it's from Asus or somebody else, right? The DirectX 2 is going to be a slightly better air cooler than what the Poseidon is air cooled, and it might be less expensive as well. So keep that in mind.
But it doesn't have 16 gigs of RAM, so who cares?
Yeah, it's also now $3,000, so there's that. Before we get into some of that kind of goody news, Lee also posted a review. He was busy this week as well of the Corsair Obsidian Series 450D case. This is a new case from the Corsair and the Obsidian line, so you have a good idea of what kind of features it's going to have, what kind of style it's going to have. Nothing drastically new here. I like the new front grille on it. Kind of I don't know if that's new exactly, but it looks good. It's got a window on it. You've got 2 optical bays on there. You have 2 of the AF140L intake fans. Support for water cooling in all kinds of locations, of course. 240, 280, and 360
And
millimeter
360 millimeter rads on the top,
Yeah.
which is just
Yeah.
crazy.
2 dedicated SSD drive sleds behind the motherboard, which is interesting. Removable drive cages for 2.5 or 3.5 inch drives. It's got what you would kind of consider the standard Corsair feature set here, which is good, right? That's not a negative thing at all. It's just a slightly different size. It's a slightly different configuration. They only have 400 different cases now for you to choose from in the Corsair brand. No external. Let's see. If we look at the strengths, according to Moore's article, very good case cooling options for liquid cooling. 2 140 intake fans and 1 120 exhaust fan are included, which is nice. 8 different case fan mounting locations, 3 dust filters, multiple locations for liquid coolers, tool-free ODD. The only weakness is no external hot swap 3.5 inch hard drive bays, if that's something you're looking for. And he misses the robust fit and finish of the 650D mid tower. So you have to read through the full review to see that. But I think, where is the pricing on this? Has it gone for sale at $119?
Yep.
Is the MSRP? That's pretty good. It's a lot of case for $120. A lot of case for $120. So check out that review. That is on PCPer.com, of course, as you would expect. So now, before we get into some GTC news and maybe not much else because of time constraints, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor for this week's podcast, our good friends at Cooler Master.
The Pulsar aluminum gaming headset by Cooler Master features 42mm drivers that deliver clear highs and powerful bass, immersing you in the action for a perfected audio experience. The aluminum ear plates can be customized to your personal style for a truly unique look. Built for customization and optimized for sound, you can learn more about the Pulsar at coolermaster-usa.com.
Nope.
No audio.
Thank
Ryan.
you, Alex. We appreciate it. And if Ryan had went out and bought one of those headsets, we'd be able to hear him right now.
Wah, wah.
Oh, what was I muted?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Well, thank you goes out to our friends Rajiv and everybody at Cooler Master for sponsoring the PC Perspective podcast and illuminating us with this great light above us. By the way, I'm not at the office, so it explains a whole lot of the hiccups going back and forth here. So let's talk about video cards for a second. We very rarely talk about video cards, I feel, on this show. And I really want to get into it. Let's talk about Tim, our very own Tim Very. He's on the ground reporting from the GPU Technology Conference, which NVIDIA would have you believe is an industry standard GPU conference, but it's really an NVIDIA conference. But they had some interesting announcements to make at their opening keynote this week, starting off with a dual GK110 GPU, a dual GK110 graphics card. Is this exciting or what, guys? Jeremy, tell me about this card and how many, dollars I need for it.
Oh, I think it's pretty cheap. Just about anyone could pick one up. One of the things I think we are excited about is that it's 2 full GK110 chips, which is nifty. You've got a total of 5,760 CUDA cores, 448 TMUs, and 96 ROPs. It comes with a mere 12 gigs of memory. So you've got 6 gigs on a 384-bit bus for both the GPUs. A decent array of outputs, 2 DVI and HDMI and a DisplayPort. It will, of course, allow you to SLI it, because seeing as how the thing is only $3,000, you're obviously going to run out and pick up 2 on an impulse purchase.
I'm sorry. Did you say $3,000?
Well, technically $2,999, but
Okay.
Yeah,
So this
so
is
we've got a
I
new
don't think we
record
we told everybody the name yet. This is the GTX Titan Z graphics card. The Titan Z.
because you're going to have to tighten the budget to afford it.
I like what
I
you
could
did
be
there.
wrong, but I don't think DayZ needs that much GPU horsepower. I don't know what they're doing with the whole cross branding thing here. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know.
You've got to buy this if you want the zombies in it.
So the I don't. So here's okay. So this was I came back. I'm on vacation technically right now with my dad. I come in from golf and I go, all right, let's check my phone. Let's see the emails I have in, and it's like blown up with, oh my god, look at this Nvidia card. It's the most powerful thing in the world. It's $3,000. Why don't you have a review up today? That's kind of the collection of emails and tweets and stuff that I was getting. I didn't know about this product until the announcement. I have it on good authority that many people inside the company didn't know about this product until the announcement. And I don't know what I think about it, to be honest with you. I think technically the performance sounds awesome, right? If you could get one of these cards for gaming, that is going to be an amazing experience. I wonder, though, it's not a secret that AMD is working on a dual GPU card. They've been kind of doing this guerrilla marketing thing with the media for a couple of weeks. And I feel like Nvidia kind of had this product they were working on. They said, well, we're going to be out first, so here you go. And they did this, and it's great. But the Titan Z is priced at a level that even the crazy enthusiast gamers, even the ones that are like in the previous iterations and previous generations had been like, I'll spend $1,000 on a video card. I'll buy that first Titan. I'll buy that 6990. I'll buy a 7990. Even they have to have a problem with what this card costs, right? So if you take that as a fact, then you got to go to, okay, this is really meant for HPC guys. Great. High performance computing, kind of a mini Quadro card, although this is going to have more power than I think almost any Quadro card out there today as well, right?
Yeah. Well, but they didn't specify double precision performance that I saw, which
I think it does. I think it has full double precision.
Okay, good.
Which is great, right, for people that want to take advantage of that. And since the introduction of the Titan was always double precision. The Titan Black was double precision. It makes sense that Titan Z would be. But remember when the original Titan launched, it was launched as a enthusiast graphics card, right? And they kind of branded it as such, as this is the flagship gaming card. Oh yeah, and if you want to use it, if you happen to want to use it for these other things, perfect. And they kind of said that actually is a very big market. These people that can afford $1,000 but can't afford $4,000 for a Quadro card, right? We can get those people in using CUDA, et cetera, et cetera. Titan Black came out, and it was like, well, we have the 780 Ti. That's really what gamers should buy. It doesn't have double precision, but you don't need it. Titan Black was kind of that. Titan Z is even a little bit further down that way because of its cost. I just feel like there's brand confusion with Titan. Titan launched as an enthusiast brand and has been transformed into a not really enthusiast branded product. Will Falcon Northwest sell some of these cards in gaming systems? Yes. Those guys will still sell systems with two Titan Zs in them to the one percenters, like the 1% of the one percenters in reality, right? And I just don't see the benefit to that, because here's what now AMD is going to do. This is what I would do if I were AMD. I would come out with whatever my dual Hawaii card is, and I would say, it's $1,500, guys. It's half the price of what Nvidia is trying to just overcharge for, right? Maybe it
You sound so confident. It's almost like AMD's done that before.
Yeah, but you gave them this huge window to do it, and now it can benefit AMD in two ways. They could go really low and totally embarrass Nvidia in terms of performance, or maybe AMD was considering like $1,500. Now they go, damn, we got all this room. We could charge $2,200 and still be $800 less than their dual GPU flagship card now, and maybe AMD will go that route, right? So I don't know what the benefit for Nvidia for launching this first is. Right? They get all the attention, and maybe now some people that aren't really paying attention to the industry will be like, oh, AMD just copied off them with this dual Hawaii card, that's going to launch whenever. That's kind of the only thing I can think of. I don't know. I know, Ken, you had some thoughts on this. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on this.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the Titan to 780 play with GK110, bring in the dual precision, sell it for as much as we can possibly sell this GPU for, then introduce the 780 as more of a gaming only oriented part. I think that's kind of the same thing they're doing here. They're saying, look, we have a card with 2 GK110 GPUs on a single PCB. We're going to take the GPUs without double precision or limited and make a 790 out of this. We're going to do this. So they introduced a $3,000 part before AMD introduced their, let's say, probably $1,500 dual 290 card. But once AMD introduces their dual 290 card, everyone will know that the 790 is already coming for sure, right?
I guess. I don't know if I...
We all know a 790 is going to happen now.
We think that they would do that. I'm not sure that they would do that.
Why wouldn't they?
Because
they're not going to have a high-end GPU anytime soon. A new...
I don't know. Most of this is just conjecture based on what I know about the people inside the company. I feel like that they are at a point where they don't feel like they need to respond to AMD for the most part. And so,
they're not responding to AMD. AMD is responding to them. This is the way they would view it. I don't view it that way because I'm not an idiot. But
no, I don't know. I don't. They would have to have. I don't know what their margins are. I don't know what Jensen is really thinking in terms of we want to make this flagship part. The Titan Z at $1,500 to even at $1,800 would be the insane person enthusiast card, but at $3,000 it's not. 12 gigs of frame buffers unnecessary, right? I don't know. It seems weird to me how this all came out. I don't.
Well, okay, so let's think of your scenario of $3,000 Titan Z and a dual 290 card at $1,500. Let's say a month, 6 weeks later, a 790 is introduced. They're not going to try to beat AMD on price. We know that about Nvidia. So it's going to be a $2,000 graphics card at that point.
Yeah.
Since they're not ever going to worry about competing on price at this point, they might as well just launch a stupid expensive part, get some people to buy it for compute, tease it, and then launch the gaming part.
Yeah, maybe. I hope so. I mean, I don't mean if I hope so. I don't like the idea of even a $2,000 video card. I don't know. It's weird. It's a truly impressive card. I've already started asking for one to see what it can do, and we'll see if they're willing to send one over for that purpose. Also from GTC, Nvidia launches the Jetson TK1 mobile CUDA development platform. Did anybody read about this? I didn't. I saw Tim post the news, but I haven't really had a chance to look at it yet. Nobody? Tegra K1 to develop CUDA applications on?
I mean, in a way, it looks like they want to stomp the hell out of Raspberry Pi. I mean, I didn't spend too much time really getting a chance to look at it. But, I mean, it's definitely the NVIDIA Tegra K1 system on a chip with 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of eMMC storage. So, I mean, in that little tiny board, you've got a lot of power. You've got a GPIO compatible expansion port, half mini PCIe slot for those who are a little bit more comfortable with that style of card as opposed to a shield. Serial USB 3.0 built in, again, no need for a shield. Micro USB, gigabit Ethernet, of course, analog audio, and HDMI video outputs. So as it stands, it's significantly better than a lot of the vanilla SoCs you can buy right now. It's significantly more expensive. Then again, if you were to buy a Pi with all the add-ons that this thing comes with naturally, the price disparity gets a little bit smaller. But as far as what I see people using this for, it seems too powerful for the hobby builders and not powerful enough for the home theater guys.
Well, it's they brand it as the mobile CUDA development platform. Gives you an idea, right? If you kind of scroll down to the second or third image there, They show it for feature detection and tracking, object recognition, 3D scene interpretation, and it looks like there's something like a car, a vision system, trying to see where the pedestrians are, where other vehicles are. The idea of taking the Tegra K1 part and kind of saying, here is your lowest cost CUDA development program. Figure out what you can do with CUDA, how it works. You are essentially using the same architecture. That's always been the push for the Tegra K1 part. You're using the same architecture that we see in all of our Kepler parts today, but toned down in performance. But you can see how it can scale, right? And now maybe you'll take that and you'll fall in love with it and you'll move it up to Titan, or you can work on Titan and scale it down to this low cost, low power platform, right? So I think that's kind of this transition they want to be able to have where people can move back and forth. $192 is drastically more expensive than what you get with the Raspberry Pi or something that like Ken's been working on with those, what's that called, Ken? The
Arduino.
Yeah, the Arduino type stuff, right? So, but it's like hey, a $3,000 video card. How about $192 hybrid?
Jensen just wants to
system
make it
setup?
rain.
Yeah.
Oh, I just noticed the price. Oh, that's
Yeah, it's 192, man.
192 cores. Ugh.
Oh, get it? Oh, that's right.
Oh.
I didn't see that either.
I don't like it anymore.
Nice.
$1
Nvidia
I
did
get
announce, I believe, last week that GPUs pre-Fermi era are end of life after 340 drivers. That's not that big a deal. We can move on from that. Before we get to the Oculus stuff, hold on. Let me round up the rest of the GTC stuff. Nvidia Shield.
Don't get one for free like everybody but me.
I'm glad I don't really need another one. We have a few at the office. But
$200 is impulse buy range though.
Gonna start
I think
using
it's
the
cool
shields
that they-
to prop up tables.
yeah,
It'll never hold that table. That table's way too heavy.
Oh God.
I think it's pretty cool though that they announced internet game streaming, right? So the game stream technology from your PC to your Shield in your house with the Wi-Fi has been interesting, but you're always kind of like, well, if I'm in my house, why wouldn't I just go with my PC and play? Some instances for that, why you wouldn't, but
I don't get the draw though, Ryan, because I have a Galaxy S3 which has a 5-inch screen, which is probably about the same size as a Shield screen. Now I'm assuming here because I've never actually held a Shield, but I no more want to play, Titanfall or Batman Arkham Origins or whatever on my cell phone. I don't want to play that any more than I would want to play it on a Shield. The screen to me is just too small, and even if you have a 1080p screen with high pixel resolution, it's still tiny. I mean, those games are meant to be played on at least a 22-inch monitor, 1080p, if not more.
Some of them are. I mean, there are a lot of PC games that aren't. First-person shooters, 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Skyrim is a game you could probably get away with playing like that.
Yeah.
But then there's all that, the whole Steam indie game scene, right? That you could play with that.
It could be a generational thing too. I mean, I'm not a console guy. A lot of people, 40 plus or in the 35 to 40 plus range probably aren't console people. My daughter, she's probably
Wait, you're trying to tell me that on this podcast there's generational gaps about gaming technology preferences?
Oh, yeah. Hey, look, there's one of
It's
them.
called eyeballs.
You're supposed to go to Jeremy on that one too.
Yeah, Josh isn't here.
I just think it's really cool that they've added in the ability to now stream over the internet, right? That was really what people wanted with this. Like, the idea of streaming PC games to a mobile device has its issues more. I'm not going to argue with you. There are usage model issues that need to be addressed, right? Where does it work? Where does it not work? Just from a user experience point of view. But limiting it inside your home network kind of almost defeated the purpose completely, because you could just go to your room and play it. And it's not like you could have one person using that PC while you're playing on the Shield downstairs or something, because the PC had to actually actively be playing it. It was just mirroring the screen. And that's still the case here with the wide area network streaming capability. But now it's like, okay, if you're someplace that has good internet connection and your internet you have to have at least 5 megabits upstream for that on your home internet, then you could possibly play your games on a Shield through remote, the game stream technology. I think it's interesting
Be at work or
interesting
don't
to
be in
try
North
out,
America.
and how much different like the latency feel is compared to the the local method.
So you get our ISP to install that gigabit internet, and I'll just leave a box here that I can connect to my Shield with. Right?
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah.
That-
I'm curious. At what point? Well, so we already have Steam local game sharing, right? But you have to be in the local network for that. Could Nvidia make it so I could stream not just to Shield, but to another PC, like a deadhead PC, right? Just a thing, And you could actually do that, Ken, where you could hook up, your MacBook Air to a monitor and have it just be a dummy receiver like Shield, right? I think that would be kind of interesting. And they also lowered the price to $199 on Shield. So they're pushing Shield again, and they gave away like one to everybody in the world today, I think, too. Based
Other
on what I
companies
saw
have tried
on
to do
Twitter. So
that.
they're not
Other
going to sell anymore. They gave them all away.
No, other companies have tried to do that dummy streaming thing too. I think GameStop had a system like that, and I think a few others did, but they never, as far as I know, they've never really taken hold too much. I mean,
Correct.
From that perspective, Nvidia could actually have something really good. It's just personally, I'm just not a console guy. I like to sit down on my computer and
I know.
yeah,
We know. It's okay.
keyboard and mouse. That's me.
I know. But what about Portal on the Shield? Valve ports Portal to NVIDIA Shield. This is not through game streaming.
Yeah,
This is
that's pretty
actually
cool.
ported to it. And that's actually pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That was neat
Still
to
have
see
to
as well.
squint to see it.
Exactly. That's old
All right.
eyes.
Okay, I'm going to move. Sorry, Ken. I'm moving things around on you here. I'm going to talk about the FirePro W9100 real quick before we get to the final bit of news. I don't want it to take up too much time. The AMD FirePro W9100 was announced. This is a not too surprising Hawaii GPU-based update to the FirePro line. So this is the same GPU that's in the R9 series of graphics cards. Talking 5 teraflops of single precision performance, 2 teraflops of double precision performance. It has 16 gigs of GDDR5 memory for a single GPU. 16 gigs for a single GPU. From the raw numbers, Scott writes, it is has slightly more capacity than the Titan Black or Quadro K6000 in all categories. It also supports 6 4K monitors or 3 at 60 hertz per card. And AMD will support up to 4 W9100 cards in a single system. So, that's only 12 60 hertz 4K panels. It's not too bad, I guess.
$3,000?
Yeah, is that what it is? This is also $3,000.
Actually, I didn't say, and it'd probably be more than that because it is professional.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Although, again, AMD loves to screw guys over, or screw NVIDIA over on that kind of stuff. So it
What
wouldn't
really
surprise me.
bothers me is this picture right here, because
Those cards gonna cook.
it's a Corsair 900D. You're not going to find that in a video workstation. Like, this is not a video workstation that any person who's buying FirePros would buy.
So, but that's part of the announcement, right? Is with this announcement, they're announcing partners that are building. What are they calling them exactly? The FirePro Ultra workstations, right? 5 launch partners: Supermicro, Box, Terox, Silverdraft, and Versatile. They have workstations built around this program.
And IKEA. It's actually your desk.
2 8-core, 2.6 gigahertz CPUs. I'm gonna guess that they're Intel. 32 gigs of RAM, 4 PCIe by 13 by 16 slots, a 1500 watt Platinum PSU, and a case with 9 expansion slots to allow for 4 9100 graphics cards, with 1 SSD or SDI interface card. So, they're kind of pushing. I don't know if they're going to use the 900D exactly, but it would surprise me if they do, considering that that's the one used in the description here. But the idea is AMD is kind of going to work with its partners to create these systems. I mean, the idea of a 16-core, 32 gig memory system with 4 W9100s in it, a 1500 watt power supply. That's going to cost a lot of money, but it's going to have a lot of compute capability.
Oh,
right?
think of all the mining you could do.
I I think what the payoff period of that would be.
Yeah, something tells me that the miners ain't going to go after this one.
Yeah. And finally, 2 bits of news around the Oculus VR Rift this week. First, the good news. Oculus Rift Development Kit 2 is only $350, expected in July. I ordered mine already the day it launched at GDC. So we've got that going for us. That's a thing. It's going to have the upgraded 1080p display, lower latency, low persistence. This is all the stuff that John Carmack is helping to work with. But in maybe the bad news section is that it will all have Facebook ads on it, and I think it'll have a like button on the outside of it that you have to push when you try out any demo, because Facebook has purchased Oculus for $2 billion. $2 billion. Facebook now owns Oculus VR and the Rift project.
And the worst part about it is that, how much they just spent for WhatsApp. $2 billion almost seems like an insult.
Yeah,
That's 2 Dr. Evils.
But they bought users with WhatsApp. They bought a shit ton of users with WhatsApp and Instagram. They don't really have that. They bought tech with Oculus.
Yeah, there's only been, 1,000 or so GK1s go out?
And everybody is saying on both sides, everyone's profusely repeating over and over again. They're just like, we're not changing what we're doing. We're whatever.
So somebody on this show, give me what does Facebook do with Rift? Does it create Second Life again? But better-ish?
If you listen to the conference call and all of all the statements that they've been making, they don't really have immediate plans of productization for Facebook and VR. They're buying the technology so they can invest in it, and Zuckerberg referred to it as the next step of computing. We went from desktop computing to mobile, now VR being the next step, which I don't necessarily know if I agree with.
Right.
I think
Bug says in the chat room that it's a play against Google Glass, that maybe they would use this technology for a portable device.
For people that want to walk into walls.
Maybe not VR, but AR, right? So
it's not AR, though.
Just imagine it. You and a bunch of guys go out drinking. You all sit there wearing Oculus Rifts. Facebook post updating yourselves while you're drinking beer, and not a single word is spoken the entire time. Doesn't this sound wonderful?
They might be jumping the gun a little bit, but have any of you guys read Ready Player One?
Not yet.
Yeah, I did.
I keep meaning to.
Yeah, so sci-fi universe where everyone logs in to akin to everybody using Facebook, right? But it's all virtual reality based, and you have a person walking around and
hey, I watched that Bruce Willis movie. It wasn't very good.
That's a very relevant analogy, actually, Alan.
It is.
Yeah, the one thing, and someone brought this up in the chat too. They had an interesting revelation about this on Daily Tech News Show that one of Tom Merritt runs. I don't remember who the guest was, but he basically, him and Tom Merritt basically were going back and forth on this. And one of the interesting points he brought up was that Facebook may just be trying to expand their assets because they know the Facebook train is not going to last. So they need other business avenues, money-making avenues, that revenue streams that will go on so that they can keep doing Facebook or Facebook-like things and not have to worry about Facebook being their primary revenue stream. It's the same thing Google does with all its research. Google's main revenue source is ads, right? But they have Gmail, they have their hardware lines, Google Glass, all that stuff. They're not necessarily worried about making money from that, but they're trying to get alternate revenue streams. So if ads change or whatever, they have all these alternate revenue streams, and they can keep doing what they do and not go out of business. And that was one thing they said on DTNS was that Facebook doesn't have these alternate revenue streams, and this is one of Zuckerberg's concerns.
Yeah, they could also buy the De Beers company or something, right? They probably couldn't.
I was listening to public radio today when I went to get dinner, and it was Marketplace or some financial show, and one of their points was Facebook is very majority controlled by Zuckerberg, so he just kind of like these acquisitions are driven by what he wants. It's not really a board or investors at this point. It's just kind of his checkbook, really. Like,
sure.
And he just
liked it, so he bought it.
He'll fit it into Facebook somewhere, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I guess if I had billions and billions of dollars, I'd do that crap too. I did have this conversation with my dad this week, kind of explaining what had happened, because I was like, remember, was it 2 QuakeCons ago or 3 QuakeCons ago? It was just Palmer and one other guy, like in the corner of a room, like showing off the duct tape model.
I found the picture from CES last year of me wearing the gaff taped model. It was January 9th,
I remember the
2013.
QuakeCon one. It was before that, before the Kickstarter, before any of that. And
so that would have only been 18 months ago.
Meeting Palmer and talking to him, and then he sold his company for $2 billion, and here I am talking to you guys on a podcast from Biloxi, Mississippi.
To be fair, it's only $400 million in cash. The rest are stock options, which they have to meet goals to hit.
And he finally gets his development kit that he never got the first time, because that's what the whole purchase is about. He just got pissed off he didn't get one.
My favorite one said, my favorite tweet was, "Oh man, now John Carmack can go out and buy that Ferrari he's always wanted."
Yeah, I saw you post that one. That was pretty good. And people still say I look like Mark Zuckerberg. I did not purchase.
You did purchase a Oculus, though.
It's true.
Maybe it got confused somehow.
Yeah. Actually, maybe I put in the bid, and people just assumed it was Mark. So now this whole thing is a big mistake. It's a big misunderstanding. We didn't really mean to purchase that. I don't know what else to say about that, really, other than the internet exploded with anger over, how can you kickstart something and then sell it? And it's like, well, they kickstarted a project, not the company. So,
and they promised you a dev kit. And what do you have now?
You got a dev kit.
A dev kit.
Good luck to them. I hope that it doesn't choke the because that derailed off of its path that I thought were going to be fantastic once Carmack joined the team. And now there's a lot of question marks involved. Because now if you're John Carmack, he loves the technology. I think he'll stay there. But it's not outside the realm that somebody like him would go, look, I just kind of left a little company that had turned into a big company that had been bought by a bigger company. Maybe that's not what I want to do again, and maybe he would eventually find his way out. I don't think that'll be the case, really, because I still think he likes what he's doing. But I don't know. Very odd stuff. So that's going to round out the show for us this week. We're going to do our hardware software picks of the week. I don't know. Let's see. I have in here my Oculus Rift Dev Kit 2, which I ordered, ironically enough, for $349. The day before, I guess a week before all this crap happened. Those will be shipping in July. I'm very, very, very curious to see how it will affect my capability to not become ill using the Rift. Whether or not the lower persistence, lower latency, higher resolution will change things for us. What'd you say, Ken?
That'd be nice.
It would. It would improve my opinion of it as a viability for a long-term thing. I did not try out the Sony stuff at GTC, I will admit, although I did watch people use it. It's pretty funny to watch other people use VR technology fighting like knights with Sony Move controllers. It's kind of weird. So you can actually go pre-order that if you want. This is not the retail product still, for people that are confused. This is not a retail product. It's still a development kit, but whatever. Jeremy, what do you got for us?
I've got this one simple trick which you can annoy any neighbor with. I actually stumbled upon it because of the second two links, which are how you can actually go ahead and build your own little piezo speaker. But for $20, if you don't really feel like playing around with solder and circuit boards and such, you can just flat out for $20, buy a piezo disc, which it will literally turn anything into a speaker. It can be kind of amusing to do. I would say if you're going to do it, go with one of the kits. Build it. But it's still just for $20, you can turn your toilet into a speaker if you so desire.
Ken, didn't we get one of these?
I think you got one a while ago.
I don't think so.
I thought
I don't
that
ever
item
remember that.
looks very familiar.
I feel like I would have stolen it if we did. So
Maybe I don't have it because you stole it.
no, I definitely don't have it because
Like I was using my cell phone in a cup holder of our golf cart today to play music. It wasn't a
So-
great experience, but
So that's why, Ryan, you think that the bathroom at your work is haunted because Ken hid one of those speakers in the toilet?
could be it on the toilet. Damn it! I knew it. Alan, let's see. Josh is not here, but his pick of the week would be a Skype connection.
Yeah.
I
to
thought he was
studio.
flying south. He's sick of winter.
If it
Yeah,
works.
well, it's apparently we had snow at my house today. My wife.
Yesterday?
Was it today or yesterday?
Winter is
Yesterday.
coming, though. Winter is coming.
it is.
It got. I mean, I'm in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is on the Gulf, and it got down to 38 here last night. So it's not exactly warm. So anyway, Alan, what do you got for us? What's your pick this week?
So we had this HP inkjet printer thing, all in one, the ones that are supposed to do everything. And it had weird printhead issues going on, and it kept just blowing through ink continuously trying to clean the printheads. And, that ink's kind of expensive, right? They charge you through the nose
Yeah.
for it. So we're like, okay, this one's trash. So that one got thrown away. So I did some research, went to, Best Buy or whatnot, and picked up a really cheap, Canon all-in-one. Now, this could be any brand, but I just happened to go for that one instead. And this is the coolest thing. You spend around $50 on eBay, and you can find. I listed one specifically for the Canon 922 model, and the link in the show notes. But they make these things for pretty much almost every printer. So find a printer you like, look on eBay for one of these kits, and when the printer quickly runs out of the starter cartridge ink, which the starter cartridges, if you don't know, are usually a fraction of the amount of ink in the regular ones that you buy to replace it. So a new printer will just blow through those cartridges really, really fast. Replace them with one of these kits. And it's basically a continuous feed kit. You have to be a little bit mechanically inclined because you're running a ribbon of, ink feeds. There's a flat, flexible ink feed ribbon. But for most printers, there's already something mechanical in place inside the printer to run the cabling that communicates with the printhead anyway, so you can kind of just follow that guide and, that flex cable just with an additional cable, so to speak, except this one just happens to carry ink, and the kits usually come with I think it's 1/10 of a liter per color. So it's the equivalent of 50 to 100 cartridges in just a continuous feed system.
I would get
So-
ink everywhere.
No.
Just everywhere if I tried to install this.
That thing that they're okay. So here's the thing. This one, the one from the link at least, came complete. It was the reservoirs. They were capped for shipment, so they didn't leak all over the place. And then there were the you can see in the picture. There's orange caps on the bottom of the actual print cartridges that go in, and it came as a completely closed and sealed system. All I had to do was just take the orange caps off of the cartridges, insert them just like regular cartridges, kind of run that ribbon, and then take the vent caps off of the reservoirs so that the air could actually go in as the ink's going into the printer. And that was it. There really wasn't much to it. It just and it works, and we've been using it a lot.
Cool.
So yeah, one of the best $50
It's
I
like
ever
liquid
spent.
gold.
Yeah. It is.
Think the water
It is.
cooling
I mean,
system
as
you
far
can
as
make
how
with
they
it.
sell it, it is
Probably
ridiculous
costs more
how
than
much
gold.
how much you
I
pay
forget.
per ounce.
There was
of
always
it.
that classic, how much. Forget what that meme was. I'll have to find it. We'll talk about it after the show. But
Yeah.
there was the relative cost per ounce or per liter of ink, and I think it was worth more than some things.
Yep. And then
Not
if you're
liquid gold, but other things.
and if you're printing like crazy, once you already have the system in place, the vent caps are real easy to take off, or the fill caps are really easy to take off of the reservoir. So you could just order like another round of ink that usually comes in bottles even larger than the reservoir capacity. So once you get to that point, you spend like another $50 or so on a round of the ink refill for it, and now you have like enough to refill the reservoirs 2-3 times over. So you're talking, thousands and thousands of pages.
Here's something. This is from 2011, so I don't know how it has changed, but this is titled "Ink Costs More Than Human Blood," and it says that HP Black ink number 45 costs 70 cents per milliliter, while human blood costs 40 cents. And crude oil costs less than 5 cents per milliliter.
Yep.
But when you print with blood and oil,
Search
people
that.
look at you funny.
Well, at least you got red and black.
It's more expensive than penicillin, vodka, Red Bull,
Oh, yeah.
water, or crude oil. So there's that. Finally, Random Out Maury, what did you got for us?
No surprise here. I picked the video card, the Poseidon video card. I mean, it's nothing I could ever buy because I got a boss who tells me how much I'm allocated. So, but no, this card's just. I mean, it's a really, if you're looking to buy a 780 and you're gonna water cool it, this is the way to go because all you got to do is pull the caps off, unscrew the caps off the water block, put in your selected barbs because it actually has G1 1/4-inch connectors on it, so you can use any barbs with it you want, and plug it into your loop, and you're good to go.
Cool.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's a pretty good card. So stay tuned for us next week. We have a whole bunch of stuff going out. Ken has been testing some really awesome products while I've been gone, right, Ken? Really awesome products. We're going to have high-end GPUs to talk about. We're going to have low-end GPUs to talk about, low-end processors to talk about. It's a busy spring. It's going to be a very busy spring for us. Thank you guys who joined us watching us live, pcpro.com/live, Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Other places, figure that kind of out on your own. We've got a schedule on the right-hand side, which will give you a countdown timer to our next available live event. And again, pcpro.com/podcast is the URL where you can download previous episodes, see our videos, and point your friends who maybe don't know yet about this amazing work that we do on a weekly basis for you guys. Amazing work. It's all amazing. I'm quite sure. And of course, go to pcpro.com and check out all of our articles and news stories from GDC last week, GTC this week, that Tim has been helping out with, and obviously Scott and everybody else keeping the front page busy with content. We have a lot of new stuff out there for you guys to check out. So with that, we'll sign off. We'll see you next week. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
Alan fail. He's Alan Malventano. And I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to hire a guy who can't figure out a mute button or the swing thing. So anyway, move past Alan.
He was
Who's
shocked
last?
by the new transitions.
I was.
and I'm Ari Titleman.
Oh, Alan, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm here. Bye.
Yeah. That's it. Bye, guys.